Hi, and welcome to the North American Bitcoin Conference. I'm Alex Mashinsky, CEO of Celsius Network, and thanks for joining. We went through an amazing 2021, right? Outperformance by altcoins, Bitcoin, everything did phenomenally well, and we're definitely very well positioned for 2022. My presentation today is all about decentralization, about all roads lead us there, and my unique experience with voice over IP and why money over IP or MOIP is where we're going. So today we're really facing a war between TradFi and CFI slash DeFi, right? I mean, the traditional world for the last 20 or 30 years has been focused on extracting as much as possible, up to 3% of total GDP from all of us, right? Through basically the fact that everything has to flow through this hourglass. Any transactions flowing up and down through the hourglass are being taxed or being basically managed by centralized toll collectors like banks and financial institutions. And we're migrating from that to a world in which decentralized finance is reinventing all of that and allows us to write new rules, new businesses, new business models in the same way that the internet has disrupted communications and other industries. So on top of it, you have an all-time high for money printing, right? Close to 40% of all the dollars that ever existed were printed in the last 18 months. So inflation is all around, and there's no way to generate yield or earn yield unless you're really going into DeFi or CeFi. As you can see, money printing has been on a tear, and what that creates is, again, it's called the Cantillon effect. The people who are close to the plate, to Washington, are getting the most benefit out of this, Wall Street and others, and the average Joe, the 99%, really just going to feel the pain of inflation later on. So as we're seeing dollar as being completely exploding in the number of supply, and even gold is increasing supply, we're seeing basically fixed or deflationary models with things like Bitcoin and Ethereum. And obviously, in a world where this type of hyperinflation is hitting us from all directions, these are very unique and pristine assets. So no wonder that Bitcoin is up over 20 million% in the last 13 years. Again, the outperformance is just staggering, no matter who you compare it to in the traditional world. Amazon, Apple, some of the best companies on Wall Street pale in comparison. This is a logarithmic scale. They pale in comparison to what's happening out there. And because of that, we're starting to see world nations stand up to the mighty dollar. The United States weaponized the dollar, and because of that, you're starting to see one nation after the next decide that they need an alternative. They cannot live in a world where the US can print money, but they cannot print money. So the question is really, what is the next target? What is the next things that Bitcoin's going to eat, country or jurisdiction? And I think we're going to be putting more of these names on the board this year. So it's a little bit like dancing with the devil, right? You have to keep your distance, and you have to make sure that you can dance to the music. But I think at least Celsius has done a very good job navigating these rough waters over the last few years. So Bitcoin is a very hungry beast. If you think of it as Pac-Man, it is just eating one asset class after the next. I kind of froze this slide in time. This was prepared, as you can see, in early 2018, where all of crypto was only $500 billion. And you can see how much progress we've made since, where very soon, in the next few years, we're going to overtake the gold market cap and a few others just from the organic growth of the industry. So when we talk about all roads lead to decentralization, you really have to think about what happened in the last few thousand years, right? How many currencies did we have? How many empires had a reserve currency, and how many of them debased it in exactly the same way that we're doing with the dollar today? So really, history just keep repeating itself. In this case, we're at the end of the dollar cycle. As you can see, we're already about 100 years into it. Really, dollar as a fiat currency has been an experiment since 1971, since we went off the gold standards. And really, if you think of Bitcoin as an experiment, gold is the dollar is just another experiment. MMT, money printing, unlimited bailouts, wars. Put all that together, and you can understand why we're having major issues. So today, the race for decentralization or for digital currencies is really between three different players. You have China in the lead today with their digital yuan. It's already in production. Over 100 million people already using it. And by the Winter Olympics this year, China plans to have more people using it than the entire population of the United States, right? Obviously, the second source option is Bitcoin or other open source public blockchains, right? Fully decentralized public blockchains. And the third versions are some kind of a corporate blockchain like Libra or some others that may come up. So the Fed really has to decide: are we going to take a seat in car number one? Are we going to join car number two? Or are we going to create some kind of a version of car number three? So to win in this world, you really need to combine three different, very distinct and incompatible systems, right? So you need a fully decentralized infrastructure. You need to have coin or token economics, real economics, right? Like again, Bitcoin is a phenomenal store of value. Ethereum is a platform for things like DeFi, NFTs, yield, and so on. And then you need to have a secure and immutable infrastructure, right? So put all those things together. Very few companies have mastered that. Celsius is obviously one of them. But if you want to win in the space, you need to be able to combine these things that are normally oil and water and make it work. So if you look at the world's assets, we feel very rich, right? Almost 300 trillion, actually, the latest numbers. And but the problem is that on top of it, on top of all these assets, we have tremendous amount of debt, right? So we have almost the same amount of debt as we have equity. And the problem is that this debt doesn't go away. When you print more money, debt is getting monetized, getting the can gets kicked down the road, right? You refinance all that debt, and it accumulates. And basically, if you can't pay it off, it's usually a recipe for disaster, as you've seen with previous empires that basically all failed because of debasement and because they could not get rid of their debts. So the conclusion is very simple: long Bitcoin, short the banks. If you need a further explanation, again, Celsius has been doing this better than most. We've beat the Bitcoin index, right? We've delivered the Bitcoin index, the performance of Bitcoin plus 6%, 6.2%, 5.8% every year for 4 years in a row. That's better than anybody else in the industry. We've done that also on 45 other assets. Paid out over $1 billion in yield, close to 5,000 Bitcoin to the community. So we stand alone compared to all the other CeFi and DeFi providers. And obviously with that comes also outperformance. So if you look at Messari's report for 2020, Celsius was the Cell token was the best performer out of the entire top 100 tokens or coins. And we plan to continue doing that again and again. We also are the first, I think, only platform to actually cross. We crossed 20 billion, and earlier in 2021 we crossed 30 billion in assets. So Celsius has more liquidity, more tokens, more coins, more Bitcoin than I think any other exchange today. And all that liquidity is generating yield for the community, where institutions and exchanges now have to pay for something they used to get for free. And it all started with just a few people in New York getting together and deciding that yield should not be something that you have to beg for, or something that you should just accept the fact that your banks or financial institutions don't pay you any, right? And we've consistently paid between 8 and 12% on stable coins, for example, for the last 4 years. Today, our team is over 800. This is just one of our offices in Belgrade, where we have about 150 people. This is my co-founder, Daniel. And it wasn't easy. This is a listing of about 200 conferences that me and others have attended and spoke at over the last 4 years to evangelize, to explain the idea behind yield and why yield is the second killer app for crypto after store of value for Bitcoin. Also, we've been pretty accurate in predicting the markets. You can see we have an updated chart of this on our YouTube, so if you want to see that as well. As far as calling what the market is going to do on Twitter, on YouTube, and so on. And you can also, if you want to get the latest predictions from Celsius, you can go and follow me on Twitter and take a look at all the things that we are sharing with the community. Really, what Celsius does is takes the flows that we're seeing from the community, and based on that, creates its own model that kind of predicts bottoms, predicts momentum, predicts ups as well. So most of you are familiar with DeFi. Really, again, Celsius invented this category, right? We were the first to pay yield on the blockchain, yield on Bitcoin, yield on Ethereum, and now basically on 45 different assets. But we were also the first one to give you yield, not just in kind, but also in a token, right? So if you think of the Cell token, before Compound, before Aave, before all those guys, really Celsius was the OG farmers on the blockchain. And we've partnered with great companies like Chainlink and others to create not just additional transparency, but also the ability to deliver all these services in a consistent and reliable way. We have 100% uptime for the last 4.5 years, and we have not suffered any hacks. So really, if you think of CeFi and DeFi, those are two partners that kind of bridge the gap between consumers and assets. And we're really excited to partner with many companies in the crypto space to do that. For example, this is our partnership with Chainlink, where we are the launch partner for the cross-chain interoperability protocol, or CCIP, which will be launched later this year. And if you want to read more about it, learn more about it, look at celsiusx.io. Again, there's an explanation video on our YouTube channel. So we invite you to take a look at that, right? So, and this is all about money working for us instead of just us working for our money, right? So take a look at it, dig into the numbers, dig into the data. And, again, we have decades, right? Decades of data proving that, economic growth is not really a result of printing more money. Like you don't really achieve anything with this strategy of MMT. It's not modern, and it's not a theory. Modern monetary theory is neither one of those two. So this is from the OCC, right? Really, we're facing unbundling of financial services, right? And the opportunity, like you saw in my previous chart, is about finding the match between those three circles, but at the same time, unbundling services for customers and delivering exceptional results in the form of yield and other banking services. And the reason you need that is because there was tremendous consolidation over the last 20 or 30 years in the banking sector. You can see the number of banks that survived all of this M&A. So basically, you have 4 too big to fail banks that can basically pay you nothing for your money because they have no competition.